Beneath the arena floor, the air is thick with old sweat, fear, and dried blood. Above us, the roar of 50,000 demands a sacrifice. They didn't come for a fight. They came to watch their myths rewritten with our flesh and bone. I lean against the damp stone wall, its chill seeping through my ragged prisoner's tunic, a bitter reminder of existence. I am Lycinus. I was once a warrior, a free man who breathed the clean air of the Dacian forests, who felt the wind on the peaks and the soil beneath his feet. Now, the air I breathe is dust and despair. The ground beneath me is cold flagstone, polished by the shuffling feet of countless men who walked before me to their deaths. Sometimes, in the suffocating silence between shows, I try to conjure the feel of a familiar sword in my hand, the weight of a shield, but the memory is fading, replaced by the clink of chains and the ceaseless roar from the world above. Through a narrow grate in the stone ceiling, a dusty shaft of light cuts down, carrying with it the chaotic sounds of preparation. I can hear the sharp crack of whips, the enraged snarls of great beasts being dragged from their cages. This morning, I saw them through the bars of another corridor, North African lions, not as regal predators but as walking skeletons wrapped in hide, starved to a maddening frenzy, their eyes burning with a sick fire. Elephants, captured from lands so far they must seem like a dream, stamping the ground in helpless fury, their intelligent eyes filled with confusion and terror. The handlers, their faces hardened by their work, jabbed at them with long prods, forcing them toward the gates that would soon open onto the hot sand. Then the sound from above changes. The din of the crowd settles into a pregnant silence, a quiet more heavy than any scream. I know what comes next. This is the midday spectacle, the Damnatio ad Bestias, condemnation by the beasts, a single scream, high and sharp, tears through the air. It is not the cry of a warrior in battle. It is the sound of pure terror, of a soul realizing the world has become an inescapable nightmare, and almost instantly, the roar of the crowd surges back, like a great sea monster rising from the depths to swallow that scream whole. They cheer. They applaud. The sound of a human being torn apart is merely the music for their feast. Don't try to understand it with a warrior's logic, a hoarse voice whispers beside me. It is Cassius, the gaunt ghost of a man who has been here longer than anyone. His skin is stretched taut over his bones, and his eyes have seen too many bloody seasons. This isn't a battle. It's a play. They don't want a fair fight. They want a story. He gives a dry, rattling cough that echoes in the damp space. They want to see the thief torn apart by wolves, the traitor devoured by lions. They want to see their myths brought to life. A story with a beginning, a climax, and a guaranteed bloody end. The glory isn't in surviving. The glory is in dying spectacularly. I turn away, my hands clenching into fists. My nails dig into my own flesh. The humiliation of it is worse than death itself. To be defeated in battle is one thing. To be made a prop in their cruel theater is another. In Dacia, we honored our dead with songs and solemn silence. Here, they honor their gods with the entrails of their enemies. The sounds from above finally subside, replaced by the sounds of cleanup. The scrape of shovels on sand to cover the stains, readying the stage for the next act. But down here, in the dark, the echo of that last scream still hangs in the air. It clings to the walls. It seeps into our minds. It is a warning. It is a promise. Soon enough, one of us would be providing the music for their thirst. The waiting was worse than the violence. In the dark, a man's imagination becomes his own worst enemy. But then, the waiting ended. The heavy sound of a bolt being drawn echoed down the corridor. Torchlight danced on the damp walls, and guards, with the bored expressions of butchers at the end of a long day, threw open our cell door. "Out, you Dacian filth! It is time for your rehearsal!" They herded us out of the gloom, up a sloped corridor and into a small practice yard, a miniature version of the hell that waited above. The bright sun was a shock, making me squint. For the first time in weeks, I felt its warmth on my skin, but it brought no comfort, only highlighting our filth and desperation. A man was waiting in the center of the yard. He wore no armor, just a leather tunic and sturdy sandals. His forearms were corded with muscle, but it was his eyes that held our attention. They were cold, practical, and empty, like the eyes of a man who has witnessed so much death, it no longer holds any meaning. This was a lanista, a trainer, a merchant of flesh. He walked around us, sizing each man up like a farmer inspecting livestock before the slaughter. He grabbed one man's chin, jerking it from side to side. He slapped another's chest. When he came to me, he paused, his eyes narrowing. "A warrior," he grunted, his voice like gravel grinding on stone. "Still some fire in there." "Good. Fire makes for a better show." Then he began the casting. "You," he said, pointing to a skinny Scythian boy, "you will be Icarus. We will give you a spectacular flight." He chuckled cruelly. "And you," he said to a large Gaul with a fiery beard, "you will play Hercules on his pyre, a warm end for a northern barbarian." Finally, he turned back to me. An assistant threw something at my feet. It was a lyre, cheaply made from rough wood and a few loose strings. "And you, Dacian, with your wild look, you will be Orpheus, the musician who could tame beasts with his song. Let's see how your talents work on a starving Siberian bear." The rehearsal was a cruel farce. They weren't teaching us how to perform. They were timing our deaths. I was ordered to strum the useless lyre, while a fully armed gladiator, a secutor with his seamless helmet and gleaming sword, circled me. He didn't attack. He just moved, letting me feel his deadly presence, measuring how long I could evade before I would inevitably fall. The drama wasn't about my skill, but about the crowd's suspense in watching the prey get cornered. From the yard, we could catch glimpses of the real arena. And one day, the emperor himself made an appearance. Commodus. He strode out to a blast of trumpets, draped in a lion's skin, proclaiming himself the reincarnation of Hercules. But it was a blasphemy. He faced an old lion, chained to a post, its claws already pulled. The emperor fought the crippled beast with silver-tipped arrows from a safe distance. Each shot met with a forced roar of approval from the crowd. I saw the truth behind the spectacle. It was not strength. It was the insecurity of a weak man cloaked in power, a child playing at war with creatures that could not fight back. The contempt inside me burned hotter than my fear. As they herded us back to the dungeons, I clutched the lyre. Splinters of wood dug into my palm. I understood now. The myth was not the story. It was merely the costume for my murder. They had taken my sword, my honor, and now they were taking my death, turning it into cheap entertainment. Orpheus had descended into the underworld and returned. I would descend into their hell too, but I knew there would be no coming back. The day of the festival arrived not with a stately trumpet blast, but with a smell. The scent of cheap incense, burned to mask the stench of death, only made the air thicker. The roar of the crowd above was a living entity, a hungry beast rattling the bars of our world. We were moved in a desperate, shuffling line. No words were spoken. Each man was lost in his own private terror. As we neared the great wooden gate, the heat and noise hit us like a physical wall. A guard roughly shoved the lyre into my hands. "Don't disappoint the emperor, musician," he sneered. Then the gates groaned open. The light, it was too bright, too cruel after months in the gloom. I raised a hand to shield my eyes, and through my fingers, I saw it. The arena. A colossal bowl of screams and color, 50,000 faces, a sea of strangers, all squinting down at me, hungry for my suffering. The sand under my feet was still warm from the midday sun and stained from the men who had died before me. I was pushed toward the center. A hush fell over the crowd as they registered a new actor had taken the stage. I stood there alone, a Dacian holding a wooden toy, facing the brutal grandeur of Rome. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. They could have killed me in an alley, but that would serve no purpose. My death had to be a lesson, a spectacle. I glanced toward the imperial box, saw the silhouette of Commodus lounging. Even from this distance, I could feel his arrogant boredom. I was not a person to him. I was a fleeting distraction. A cold, clear anger rose in me, overriding the fear. If I had to die, I would not die a trembling lamb. I brought the lyre to my shoulder and struck a chord. The sound was jarring, dissonant in the vast space. It wasn't music. It was a cry of defiance. The crowd laughed, and then, on the far side of the arena, another gate was raised. A Siberian bear emerged, blinking in the sun. It was not a majestic monster. It was a pathetic thing. Gaunt, its fur matted and filthy. It had been starved, prodded, and now it was a wreck of fear and aggression. For a brief second, our eyes met. I saw no malice in them, only the same confusion I felt. It, too, was a prisoner, dragged from its world to die for their entertainment.